In accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, this court...
Did you know you're nothing?
Go now.
This is 30-year-old Diablo Redden, who's facing charges for attempted battery in Nevada. Redden was arrested after he allegedly attacked a man with a baseball bat. He pleaded guilty and faced a possible sentence of 1 to 4 years in prison. At his sentencing, Redden had a calm and matter-of-fact exchange with Clark County District Judge Mary Kay Holthus.
Based on my criminal history, I feel that I shouldn't be sent to prison for a second time.
Have you looked at your criminal history? Have you looked at your criminal history?
I actually just I looked at it.
When you lived it, I
I
suppose.
just looked at it.
Yeah.
Judge Holthus then reminded Redden of his criminal history.
3 felonies, a gross, 9 misdemeanors, multiple DVs. Got a lot going on, sir.
I just figured
Battery on a protected person, robberies, attempt home invasion.
Redden, who struggled with mental health issues like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, tried to convince the judge that he deserved a second chance.
I feel like I shouldn't be sent to prison, but if it's appropriate for you, then you have to do what you have to do. But I figured that, if I'm in a better place in my life, I'm not doing drugs, I'm not out there committing crimes now, and I feel like I should be given a shot because I'm in a better place than I was.
But Judge Holthus was having none of it.
I appreciate that, but I think it's time that he gets a taste of something else because I just can't with that history.
This is when things got crazy. Eventually, deputies were able to restrain Redden. As alarms went off in the courtroom, people started to call for help.
That's affirmative medical is requested. Judge's chambers.
Yeah, be advised. 515's got a big laceration to his head. Judge hit her head into the wall, and I got an inmate bleeding up here.
It's going to be a positive transport to UFC for the marshal.
Be advised, I'm also going to need a biohazard cleanup for a lot of blood on the floor.
It was later found that Redden allegedly punched Judge Holthus and pulled out parts of her hair. One marshal had to be hospitalized and needed 25 stitches after suffering a forehead injury, as well as a dislocated shoulder. A few days later, Redden was seen in court again, heavily shackled and wearing a spit mask for the sentencing of his initial assault case.
Good morning. All right, this is on for the continuation of Mr. Redden's sentencing. For purposes of the record, I want to make it clear that I am not changing or modifying the sentence I was in the process of imposing last week before I was interrupted by defendant's actions. All right, that being said, in accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, this court does now sentence you in addition to the $25 administrative assessment fee, $150 DNA fee, the $3 DNA administrative assessment fee, and $250 indigent defense fee, 19 to 48 months in the Nevada Department of Corrections.
Additionally, he faced 13 new charges for the attack on Judge Holthus, including attempted murder, battery, and extortion by threat. If convicted, Redden could spend decades in prison. This wasn't the only time a convict freaked out during their sentencing. Take, for example, the case of Taylor Shabusiness, who was on trial for murdering her boyfriend. Reports suggest that 25-year-old Taylor killed and mutilated Shad Therion in a drug-fueled intimate act. The 24-year-old was strangled with a metal chain, and his dismembered body was found in his mother's basement. Taylor left Shad's severed head in a bucket and other body parts in a storage tote, plastic bags, and cardboard boxes. Shad's mom, Tara, discovered the gruesome scene and called 911.
Great President, my son decided in a bucket, bucket in my basement.
What makes you think that?
Because I looked in the bucket.
What did you see?
Exactly what I told you.
Okay, where's the rest of the body at?
No idea.
The cops arrived and immediately found blood marks outside the house.
Hey. Is this blood? Does this look like blood to you? Or am I just tripping? Bloody footprint? You see this right here? Could possibly be blood.
Once inside, they discovered the full extent of the crime.
I had Officer Plunky come downstairs and just verify we had in fact found a human head in the bucket, and then we started to notify supervisor and then ask for additional units.
Taylor was promptly arrested.
Hi, Taylor. How's it going? Officer Russell with the Green Lake Police Department. Just make sure you got nothing on you here.
During interrogation, Taylor explained what actually happened that night. She said that both Shad and she took part in uncommon sexual acts, which quickly took a darker turn.
You two being intimate, how
It was getting there.
just getting there. Okay. So will this be considered?
Yeah, it was. And then, I don't know. And then, I just didn't stop. I don't know why. I didn't stop.
So when he put the chain on his neck, he thought that you guys were going to have kinky, right? You think that's what Chad was thinking, maybe?
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
I was gonna do the same thing. You know, I was going in, and I did. And I went in. But then he was like, choke me. But he didn't really say it, so I'm like, he put it on his neck. I already know I'm gonna choke him. And I did.
High on drugs, Taylor didn't realize Shad's face had turned purple and he was dying.
So when did you realize that Shad was not alive anymore?
You know, his face turned purple. He was coughing up blood and he was pissing.
He's pissing himself. His face was all purple.
I still didn't stop. I don't know what was going on. I don't know what and
But Taylor didn't stop and decided to ultimately kill him.
The chain goes around his neck and started choking him. And you just realized that he was going to die or what?
I'm just like, I think I went a little too far. Cause like I was blacking out while I was doing it, right? And then like, and then like, I look at him, I'm like, he's already purple. I'm like, fuck, I'm like, I don't know if he's fucking. Is he good? Is he good? But then like when I woke up, like, you know, during the blackout moment, like he was coughing up blood. I'm like, I don't know. I just kept on going. Like, yeah.
You made the comment, you said that when you were choking, you was coughing up blood, you kind of were like, I'm going this far, I'm just going to keep going. Did you realize that by continuing that may kill him?
Oh yeah, because I felt bad because I'm like, damn, he's going to be wheezing after this. I'm like, might as well just get it.
She said she didn't want to kill Shad, but admitted to enjoying it.
And you also said that you enjoyed it, right? And I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
Alright.
Like, this is the thing that I have, like, I've always had, you know, like, you ever love something so much that you kill it? Like, it happens to me. That's the feeling that I have. I love something so much that I kill it. Like, I love it so much, and then I kill it.
After Shad was killed, Taylor assaulted his dead body for the next 2 to 3 hours.
I grind it on, I put the in there.
You grind it on?
Yeah, I listen.
Did you ever put his in your or you just grind on him?
She then proceeded to dismember Shad's body using knives from his mom's kitchen.
How did you dismember his body?
Knives.
With what?
Knives.
Knives? More than one knife? Where'd you get those from?
Kitchen.
But when did you start, his body?
I don't know, like almost right away. I was and
You said you got his head off first, correct?
yeah.
Can you describe where was he laying on the bed?
I pulled him.
Okay.
Like, say this is the bed.
Okay, so this is the top of the bed?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I pulled him, and then his head was hanging off.
So you're probably laying face out. So
Yeah.
his back was on the bed.
Back was on
his
the bed.
head's partially off the bed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the tub was like right there.
Like the pail that you had the
Yeah.
head in before? Okay. So basically his head's here and the bucket's right here.
Yeah, and then from there, I started just. Yeah.
Finally, she disposed of the body parts in her van, but became lazy and forgot the decapitated head in a bucket.
So you dismembered the body too?
Yeah.
And what did you do with the body parts? Basement, upstairs, downstairs?
Absolutely in the basement. I was in the room with him. And then, I know I forgot the head. I wanted the head. But I got lazy.
Okay.
I got lazy, and that's what I did. So.
Taylor was charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault. In court, investigators described what they found at the crime scene.
Beyond the stack of mattresses, there appeared to be blood on the floor and then small chunks of human flesh.
There was a human head. There was genitalia in the bucket.
Let me stop you there. What do you mean genitalia?
What I would recognize as a and testicles. The skin, soft tissues, and muscle had been removed from the bone so that it was largely stripped down to the bone itself. The back has been largely flayed and defleshed. In other words, the skin of the back has been removed. Also, the muscles of the back have been removed so that we have exposed rib cage.
Despite the horrifying nature of her offenses, what Taylor did next still managed to shock everyone. It took 2 officers to subdue her. Due to her aggressive behavior and court antics, Taylor was forced to wear a spit mask and shackles for the remainder of the trial. At her sentencing, Shad's loved ones got the chance to address his killer directly.
You know, there's help out there. And if you take the path to go get the help, you wouldn't be in this situation right now. None of us would be in this situation. But to take the cowardly path that you did and to make other people suffer because you were suffering is pretty shitty. So that name Taylor shit business fits you well. And I'm not a praying man, but after Judge Walsh's sentences today, I will pray that you meet the same fate as your idealistic Jeffrey Dahmer. So have a good life, business.
But in a shocking turn of events, Shad's own father took the stand and got the chance to speak directly to his son's murderer. He forgave Taylor and even asked for her to get out of prison soon.
Taylor, I just want to say that I forgive you for what you've done to my son. Yeah, you made a bad choice, and now you have to live with it. But, you know, I'm going to miss Shad. He was a wonderful child, too. Growing up, just mild-mannered and just happy. And I know you made a bad choice. And like I said, I forgive you. And I'm going to ask the judge if he can, if she can see the streets again sometime,
However, the judge had no such sympathy.
This crime offends human decency, it offends human dignity, and it offends the human community. It really does.
Taylor was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole.
As to in 22 CF 363, count 1, that's the first-degree intentional homicide as a repeater. That's a Class A felony. Going to impose life imprisonment without the possibility of extended supervision.
While Taylor's trial was filled with blood-chilling moments, it's nothing compared to our next case. This is Melissa Hardwick, who was in Russell and Wayne County Family Court in Kentucky for a domestic violence hearing. Melissa's ex-husband had filed a DVO against her.
Your statements in your petition as part of your testimony, but I need you to tell me briefly, in your own words, what happened to cause you to ask for a domestic violence order.
Yes, Your Honor. Things have been escalating, I guess, since the first of the year. And Melissa's had a couple MIWs and a couple arrests. And she got out of jail in, I guess, April. And she started, we hadn't really had anything personal up until that point. She got out of jail in April.
He was explaining the situation when suddenly Melissa erupted.
My personal life is
No.
your business. It has nothing to do with
Miss
you
Hardwick,
boys. No.
you will be held in contempt of this court if you become disruptive.
I don't care. I haven't done anything to this court. I haven't done anything to him.
She will be arrested for contempt of the court.
It doesn't make any difference.
You will serve 10 days for contempt of court.
She was arrested for contempt and sentenced to 10 days in jail. This is when things got crazy.
You go now. Thankfully, court deputies stepped in before she could reach the judge, but that didn't stop her threats.
Get my wife off the floor.
Melissa faced additional criminal charges for her antics.
A new judge will have to be appointed to represent her, but she will be charged criminally for the threats that were made in open court today.
After spending 5 months in prison, she pled guilty and was ordered to participate in a 5-year rehabilitation program. However, this wasn't the only time a convict freaked out during their sentencing. Take, for example, the case of Andrew Worth, who's facing double homicide charges in Wisconsin. According to reports, it all started when off-duty cop Jennifer Lewick grabbed Worth from behind at a bar in Jefferson. Worth took offense, which led to an altercation between him, Jennifer, and her boyfriend, Greg Peters. Soon, things got out of hand, and Worth allegedly shot Greg thrice, the third of which hit Jennifer in the chest.
Greg had 3 wounds to him from the firearm. One went in his chest, the second one caught the cell phone that was in his pocket, and one went through his neck. And the bullet that went through his neck is the one that went into Jenny, who was behind him at the time.
Witness Scott Trader said that Jennifer had initially survived, but died minutes later.
She had yelled, call 911, he's got a gun, and then she was standing there for a few minutes and then collapsed.
When Trader got outside, he saw Worth pointing a gun at Greg's head and yelling at him.
He said he was having a hard time breathing, and nobody knew that he had been shot in the side until they pulled up his shirt and actually saw the wound.
In court, the defense argued that Worth acted in self-defense.
This was a confrontation that started because Jennifer Lewick had a problem with Andrew Worth because he complained about being touched. It's a confrontation that was created and escalated by Greg Peters. A confrontation that ultimately left Andrew Worth with no choice but to use a weapon to defend himself against what he believed was a direct threat to his own life.
Worth was initially charged with 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, with his bail being set at $1 million. This is when he snapped. It took several court officers to pacify him. Police Chief Jim Wallace was right next to Jennifer's family when this happened.
I believe it's typical of what he's being charged with. His actions may be consistent with what was out on that evening.
Given this outburst, Worth appeared with his legs shackled and his hands cuffed and bound to his waist in his next appearance. Worth was ultimately convicted of homicide by negligent use of a dangerous weapon and sentenced to 10 years in prison.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Andrew J. Worth, not guilty of second-degree reckless homicide. We, the jury, find the defendant, Andrew J. Worth, guilty of homicide by negligent handling of a dangerous weapon. I'm going to impose on count 1, 10 years, 5 years initial confinement, 5 years extended supervision. On count 2, 10 years, 5 years initial confinement, 5 years extended supervision, those sentences to run consecutive to each other.
When emotions run high in court, the actions of people like Andrew Worth and the suspect in our next case leave us questioning sanity itself. This is Percy Phillips, who's in court today for retaliating against a witness.
He threatened the police officer who testified against him.
As per reports, Phillips acted out against a witness inside a courtroom in a previous trial. Now, a hearing was underway to determine whether the 45-year-old was competent to stand trial. His lawyer argued that it was impossible for him to mount a defense for Phillips since he wouldn't talk.
Mr. Phillips is presently incompetent to stand trial. If we end up in trial, there is no way I can competently even frame a defense. I have asked Mr. Phillips, what do you want me to say or do at your trial? And he won't tell me. He literally, for years, has not said a word.
He even predicted what was to follow later in this courtroom.
Mr. Phillips has shared that he doesn't know exactly what he'll do in certain situations in the courtroom. He thinks he just may explode.
Then, while the prosecutor was making his argument, something unexpected happened.
Your Honor, it's interesting to remember that the conclusion of the case, when the defendant was unhappy with the verdict and unhappy with the sentence, he threatened the police officer who testified against him.
Phillips, who until that moment had shown no emotion, suddenly snapped.
Day 16 to 239. I had to stun Percy Phillips. You want to come on up?
Phillips was later deemed incompetent, and the case was dismissed. However, this was not the last time he would be seeing the inside of a courtroom. Phillips was later involved in a 2-decade-old murder case. In 1993, a man reportedly shot and killed 25-year-old Brendo Whitfield at a gas station in Louisville, Kentucky. At that time, a guy named Edwin Chandler was wrongfully sentenced for that murder. After serving nearly a decade in prison, Chandler was exonerated and released as new evidence and testimony found that police had made major errors in the investigation of the case. Then, in 2009, a grand jury indicted Percy Phillips after fingerprint evidence was linked back to him. The prosecution focused on an eyewitness who years later had told police that he saw Phillips run out of the store at the time of the murder.
Wrote a letter to the homicide office saying you got the wrong guy. Use your common sense when you're listening to John Gray. This case won't be like the TV shows we watch.
But the defense has other explanations.
If Mr. Chandler didn't do this, that does not mean that Mr. Phillips did.
Chandler, too, was called to the stand, where he explained how he was forced to give a false confession.
Officer Handy got upset about it. He told me that I was lying. He told me that, my mother wouldn't appreciate the fact that I was sitting here lying, trying to wiggle out of this situation.
Phillips' conviction ultimately became challenging due to the considerable time elapsed since the incident.
The difficulty in presenting Ms. Whitfield's case to the jury is both the age and it's been almost 30 years.
Which eventually led to a hung jury and mistrial. However, just when you thought you'd seen it all, another convict surpasses Phillips' wild courtroom display. Enter 32-year-old Manson Bryant, who's facing charges for multiple crimes, including robbery and abduction in Ohio.
The court determines that you have or will have the ability to pay restitution.
According to reports, 35-year-old Bryant and a co-defendant were arrested for crawling through the window of a trailer home, holding the resident at gunpoint and robbing him. At his sentencing, Bryant appeared before Judge Eugene Lucci, who was a familiar face.
The last time before this time that I had him, I put him in prison for 4 years for a robbery. He acted out briefly on his way out of the courtroom, and I just let it go.
Bryant was given a chance to speak on his behalf.
I am thankful for the opportunity and afforded by court, by the day in court, and I respect the decisions that the jury will make. I alone have the power, to end the cycle of incarceration, and all I ask is for you to give me an opportunity to still make something out of my life, sir.
He begged Judge Lucci for an opportunity.
And all I ask is for you to give me an opportunity to still make something out of my life, sir. I don't want to die in prison, sir. I'm not a bad person, sir. You have to do it. I've been in prison more than one time. I respect you. I respect the decision that you made.
Now it was time for Bryant to learn about his fate.
Followed by the gun spec on count 1, followed by the gun spec on count 3, followed by count 1, followed by count 2, for a total of 22 years with credit for 231 days.
Now, if you thought Bryant was truly remorseful for his crimes, then you were wrong. As the judge finished reading his sentence, Bryant lost it.
The ability to pay restitution.
Courtroom, man. You 22 years. You ain't told me about that bullshit.
Actually, remember when I said you had to some more?
You never gave me probation.
Wait a minute.
You never gave me a chance.
When I said that you had a certain amount of remorse, I was mistaken. The court determines maximum imprisonment is needed. So it's
Bryant was initially sentenced to 22 years in prison, but his epic outburst made Judge Lucci reconsider the sentence.
The court determines that the defendant has shown no remorse whatsoever. I was giving him remorse, a certain amount of remorse in mitigation of the sentence. The defendant has shown me that he has no remorse whatsoever, and therefore the court determines that maximum imprisonment is needed.
Later, the judge explained the reason behind his decision.
Well, it was clear that the remorse that he was trying to portray was phony, and that he wasn't remorseful at all, and that if given the chance, if I let him loose on society, he's going to prey on other people.
Eventually, Bryant's additional 6-year sentence was struck out by a higher court. Manson Bryant is a prime example of a convict acting crazy in court. But could getting your mouth shut with tape be considered crazier? Like in the case of Franklin Williams, who's facing charges for multiple robberies.
You will get a chance to talk. I'm going to gag you in 1 second, so just listen to me.
According to reports, Williams carried out a string of armed robberies in 2014. He then led state troopers on a high-speed chase, which resulted in the injury of an officer. Williams was charged with aggravated robbery, kidnapping, and unlawful possession. He initially pled guilty, but later withdrew his plea and fled the state. Williams later claimed that he didn't flee, but rather lost his memory after an accident and forgot about the trial. Williams was eventually caught and his trial resumed, but that did not stop him from making headlines. At his sentencing, Williams interrupted the courtroom proceedings over 60 times in 54 minutes, despite repeated warnings from Judge John Russo.
I just met this attorney the other day.
That's fine. So here, okay.
I came and took my cell phones yesterday, and they came and took all my property out my cell today.
Mr. Williams, I'm the judge in the matter. Shut your mouth, and I'll tell you when you can talk. You got it?
And on the document,
again, I'm going to interrupt. Mr. Williams, listen to me. If we have to, I will gag you in 1 second. So listen, you will get a chance to talk. I'm going to gag you in 1 second, so just listen to me. Zip it right now.
Mr. Williams will.
Mr. Williams, be very simple to gag you. You'll get a chance to speak. So
Tell me black women just walked in here.
Okay, so
I have been around.
Let's go back. I'm zipping. Anything you want to add to your insanity?
Finally, the judge had had enough. He ordered court deputies to shut Williams up with duct tape.
Speak it, sensei.
Take me off.
No, I'd like you to speak.
Mr. Williams, I want to make it real clear. If you spit on, attempt to bite, or injure any of my deputies, you're going to have a bad day. Are you clear?
Put the tape on me, man. We done with this shit. That's what it is.
Judge Russo later apologized for his decision and recused himself from the case.
I apologize for taking that action last week.
In his next sentencing hearing, Williams took the stand to plead his case.
Saying freedom of speech, no duct tape. Your Honor, I asked today, Your Honor, that I received the lightest sentence that you can give me. I want the world to know I am not an animal. Contrary to what people may think, I am a man.
However, the judge said Williams already had a long record before this crime and sentenced him to 33 years in prison.
I know you're not an animal, Mr. Williams, you're a human being. But the question the court has to determine is whether or not you've learned from those mistakes.
But before Williams left, he had some final words for the court.
Freedom of speech, no duct tape. Okay. Freedom of speech, no duct tape. With the hashtag.
While Williams' defiance of the law was certainly shocking, he isn't alone in his actions. Let's not forget the incident involving Daniel Nicholson, who was arrested on weapons charges in Adelaide, Australia. Nicholson, previously released on bail for threatening 2 police officers with a syringe, returned to the courtroom once again. This time, he was facing charges for unlawfully carrying an offensive weapon. At his pre-sentencing, the judge decided to revoke Nicholson's bail.
I revoke bail. I revoke bail. No, you can stop.
He protested in disbelief, but the judge refused to listen.
What's going on about?
Take a seat. Take a seat.
Miss, please, miss.
Please, miss. I'll show you what please, miss is.
Little did anyone expect what Nicholson would do next. He launched himself over the glass dock, overpowering 2 officers, and landed on the bar table before being tackled to the floor. Eventually, officers were able to get things under control. Amidst all that chaos, a woman made a plea on Nicholson's behalf. Nicholson faced additional charges of aggravated assault.
You just smashed into a officer. That's an aggravated assault. Thank you.
The incident saw one officer suffering a broken foot, while another sustained a jaw injury. Nicholson later pleaded guilty, saying he freaked out due to long-standing drug issues. He was sentenced to 21 months in prison. While Nicholson's reaction to his sentence was indeed shocking, How does it compare to punching your lawyer? Like in the case of Christopher Teal, who was in the King County courtroom facing sexual assault charges in Seattle, Washington. Reports suggest that Teal, a homeless man, followed a woman inside a restroom at a Volkswagen dealership and assaulted her. He was arrested after company employees barged in and stopped the attack. Teal was charged with first-degree sexual assault and unlawful imprisonment. He appeared in court for a competency hearing represented by his lawyer, Reed Birkland. As the hearing began, Teal seemed amused and raised his arm towards Birkland before being stopped by a court officer.
Mr. Teal's present, he's in custody, he's represented by counsel, Mr. Birkland.
Then suddenly, without provocation, Teal snapped.
Standing from his counsel, who I'll defer to in a moment, that they are now stipulating that Mr. Teal...
Out of nowhere, Teal punched his own lawyer. Luckily, the police quickly managed to subdue him.
Put your hand behind your back now.
A spit hood was placed over his head, and Teal was removed from the courtroom. Birkland was unhurt in the incident, barring his pride. He promptly withdrew from the case.
So regarding the Christopher Teal matter, okay. I have a question though. Are you running a diminished capacity or insanity or anything of that nature?
I don't have anything to talk about.
The next time Teal appeared in court, the officers ensured he wouldn't be punching anyone. Teal was seen heavily strapped to a chair. However, he still had one complaint. Teal's biggest concern was how his hair looked in his mugshot.
I'd like to know where the they got that photo of me with my short hair. Because that was on Facebook, and I don't have a Facebook. All right. So you're on that. Legitimate question. Like, do they have access to Google?
The judge scheduled another hearing in a week's time. Eventually, Teal was sentenced to 8.5 years in prison. While Teal's reaction could certainly be dismissed as a mental health issue, the same can't be said for 30-year-old Bass Webb, who was in court for attempted murder charges. CCTV footage outside a Kentucky jail showed Webb, a former inmate who spent 3 months there on assault charges, intentionally hitting 2 prison workers with his car. While one guy managed to dodge it, the other was not so lucky. Webb was arrested and produced in court before Judge Vanessa Dixon.
Yes. Yes.
Since she knew the 2 jail employees beforehand, Judge Dixon decided to recuse herself from the case.
There's no way I'm going to try this case. I have any further proceedings, or I have to see you for one further second.
But what Webb did next shocked the whole courtroom. Judge Dixon charged him and threw him out of the courtroom. Nevertheless, this is not the end of Webb's defiance of the law. While awaiting trial, Webb started a riot with other inmates in the Fayette County Detention Center. Webb was shot with beanbag bullets and even hit in the neck with a pepper ball. In retaliation, Webb swung a metal telephone box at a corrections officer. Webb was tried again for his actions. The prosecution argued that Webb attempted to cause serious injuries to the officer.
If I were to launch this at someone 10 feet away, that's some pretty scary stuff. It's made of metal. Because this is capable of stopping that does not mean that that is not readily capable of causing death or serious physical injury.
Webb was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Additionally, he was found guilty of attempting to murder the 2 jail employees and got an additional 37 years, facing a total of 52 years of prison time. However, that's not all. While incarcerated, Webb was charged with the unsolved murder of his ex-girlfriend, Bria Runowitz. In 2009, Bria was found brutally murdered at her home in Cynthiana. While imprisoned, Webb bragged to a detective about murdering the 32-year-old. To escape the death penalty, Webb pleaded guilty and got an additional 50 years in prison. Now, if that wasn't enough, 5 years later, another cold case came to haunt Webb. This time, it was for the murder of another ex-girlfriend, Sabrina Vaughn. Sabrina had been missing since 2003, but her remains weren't found until 2010, when police found a body buried in a shallow grave in Montgomery County. This time, Webb appeared in court with a sinister tattoo on his head. It had a murder hit list of all the people he intended to kill, including all judges, all prosecutors, all cops, the media, 3 rats that had been crossed out, and many more. Webb was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Vass Webb's audacious acts in court shocked everyone. Our next suspect, however, did something similar. For this, we head to the Story County Courthouse in Nevada, Iowa. At the end of a long day, prosecutor Tim Meals was heading home for the night. Unknown to Meals, someone was following him. The suspect called his name, and when he turned, this happened. Meals was attacked and punched in the face. Another prosecutor, Tyler Eason, promptly jumped to his rescue. Eventually, court security arrived and arrested the suspect. Both prosecutors suffer minor injuries to their head and face. The suspect was later identified as 31-year-old Major Robinson. Meals had prosecuted him in a previous case, and now he was there to settle a score. Robinson was charged with 2 counts of assault and 2 counts of willful injury. The incident led to complaints from other prosecutors who felt they should be protected under similar laws as police officers and firefighters. Robinson eventually pled guilty and was sentenced to 1 year in prison. While it was clear that Major Robinson wasn't happy with the attorney who had previously prosecuted him, his actions were similar to David Chiselton, who was convicted of assault and arson in Cleveland, Ohio. Police claimed that Chiselton assaulted his girlfriend with a pistol and held her hostage before setting an apartment complex on fire. During his sentencing, Chiselton appeared with handcuffs in the front, which typically is not that secure. Chiselton's lawyer, Aaron Brockler, had initially argued for a 9-year sentence. Instead, Chiselton received 47 years in prison, and he was not happy at all. So, he took it out on his lawyer. Chiselton punched Brockler in the face and continued assaulting him. Eventually, court officers were able to control the situation.
Hey, you calm? Hey, yeah. You calm? Yeah. You know you messed up, right? You understand that, right? Okay? Mm-hmm. Listen, when I uncuff you, put your hand behind your back. You understand? Yeah. Okay? Relax your hand. Relax your hand.
They escorted Chiselton from the courtroom and down the holding cell.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
What do you need? Water, ice?
No, I'm good for now.
Sure? What about Mike? Where's Mike? Okay. Alex?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
SRT!
He assaulted his own attorney just right after he got sentenced to 45 years. So right now, assaulted me.
As for Brockler, he later told his side of the story.
And I turned to him because I was about to tell him that I would come and meet with him privately to see if there was anything we could do to reduce his sentence. But before I could even open my mouth, I just heard a swoosh sound, and all I remember is waking up on the floor underneath the table. The prosecutors were behind me. I guess they were trying to pull me out from under him because he was biting me. So, yeah.
Where was he biting you?
He was biting me in my rear end. And then I felt blessed that, it was just a busted nose and a concussion.
In a surprising turn of events, Chiselton was later found not guilty for the assault. While Chiselton's actions came totally out of the blue, our next suspect is even more unpredictable.
David St. John.
This is David St. John, who's facing multiple charges, including aggravated sexual assault in Houston, Texas. As per reports, St. John took a teenage girl to a motel and sexually assaulted her at gunpoint. At the time of the incident, St. John was already awaiting trial for 3 other crimes, including possession of the pistol he used during the alleged assault.
Mr. St. John, you are charged with the felony offenses of felon in possession of a weapon and aggravated assault of a older than 14 but younger than 17.
In the court, while the judge was seemingly distracted with another issue, St. John did something shocking.
De la orden, aquí en la sala de audiencia.
After you sign the order...
Did you learn your lesson?
He kept repeating, "Did you learn your lesson?" before punching a man. Fortunately, St. John was quickly subdued by an officer.
Hit the panic button. Call someone.
Sit down, man. Just sit down.
Even as he was being cuffed, St. John continued to offer advice.
I'm learning the lesson. Hey! I'm fine. What was that? No, you need to learn the lesson so you don't end up like me. You got Get up.
It was unclear why St. John attacked the man, but before leaving the courtroom, he had one final word of wisdom.
Don't end up like me. Hey.
Fortunately for St. John, the man didn't press charges. However, he pled guilty to his original charges and was sentenced to 2 25-year sentences. St. John's case was not the first time a convict had lost it in court, just like what happened with Dexter Johnson, who was facing capital murder charges in Texas. On the night of June 18, 2006, Dexter and his gang allegedly carjacked 23-year-old Maria Aparici and her 17-year-old boyfriend, Huey Ngo. The gang then drove them to a secluded area where Dexter assaulted Maria. He then took them to the woods nearby and executed them. Johnson was arrested after police traced the stolen car and found DNA evidence linking him to the crime. Now in court, Dexter is about to learn his fate.
Dexter Darnell Johnson, the jury has found you guilty of capital murder. In accordance with the laws of the state of Texas, this court hereby assesses your punishment of death. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is going to complete your jury service. I'm going to meet you in the jury room.
Dexter went into shock, unable to stand up, while his family broke down in the gallery. Suddenly, he exploded, causing total pandemonium in the courtroom. Eventually, Dexter was cuffed and removed from the court. The chaos spilled into the hallway. With one family member so upset, she required medical attention.
I'm gonna call an ambulance, ma'am. Do you want an ambulance? Yeah, I need an ambulance.
And as for Dexter, his execution was halted by a federal court, citing intellectual disability. He is still on death row. Dexter's wild court hearing brings to mind the strikingly similar scenes in our next case.
God! 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 God!
The man screaming for a higher power is Damon Kemp, a double murder suspect in Florida. On the night of December 7th, 2018, Kemp allegedly shot and killed Trey Ingram and Jordan Payton at an apartment in Daytona Beach. A witness heard the shots and called authorities.
Very loud pops, just bang, 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 just very rapid procession.
Kemp was arrested and charged with murder and armed burglary. During a bond hearing, he was wheeled in, strapped to a wheelchair. Safe to say, Kemp didn't appreciate that.
God! 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 God!
In the gallery, you need to hold it down.
God!
Mr. Kemp?
God!
Damon Kemp. My name is Judge Orfinger. I'm going to conduct your first appearance. I met you.
God!
Kemp had a confused expression throughout the hearing.
I do believe that there is probable cause for the arrest. And under these circumstances, I am not able to grant you bond or any form of pretrial release. So you're to be held at the Volusia County Jail, and you will be brought before the felony division judge at the next date on her or his calendar. All right?
And his face turned frightening with each passing minute.
I've appointed the public defender to represent you, so you have a lawyer this morning. And after I've done all that, I've determined the conditions of your release, if you can be released.
Kemp was eventually found guilty of 2 counts of second-degree murder and sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms in prison. Kemp's wild expressions certainly aren't for the faint-hearted. But how does it compare to another crazy courtroom incident involving William Terry, whose sentencing was wrapping up at the Cuyahoga County Justice Center in Cleveland, Ohio? Terry just received an 18-month prison sentence for burglary and assault. Present in the court were his family sitting behind him, while the victim was seated across the courtroom. As he was heading to prison, Terry turned to his family and gave them words of encouragement.
All right, so let's go.
18 months.
Then suddenly, he turned towards the victim and started abusing him.
Hey, you talk.
A deputy tried to pacify him, but Terry attempted to headbutt the officer.
Touch me like that.
Two deputies tried to control the situation, but that was not enough. Terry was removed from the courtroom without any further incident.
Let's go, man. Give me the ready? Yeah. We gonna be calm now? Yeah. All right. Ready?
He faced no additional charges for his outburst. However, Terry's antics were in stark contrast to the actions of Joshua Mosley, a murder suspect in South Carolina. Mosley was on trial for killing his girlfriend, Drenika Hopper, who was shot in the head and later succumbed to her injuries in the hospital. Mosley was arrested and charged with murder and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. During his bond hearing, the prosecution laid out the details of the case.
Your Honor, this occurred back on January 8, 2017, Your Honor. A Cherokee County Sheriff's Office was called, Your Honor, to 378 Morris Drive in Gaffney, South Carolina, Cherokee County, Your Honor. And he found Drenika Hopper in the bed. She had been shot inside the head. Through additional investigation, they found he made statements about shooting her.
Family members of Drenika filled the courtroom for the hearing. In an unusual move, the judge allowed them to approach Mosley directly. First, it was the victim's mother who addressed her daughter's killer.
I don't know what to say today, but I just want to know and let you know Joshua took my baby away from me. And you was wrong for that. You done destroyed my family. I hope you don't never get out.
Followed by the victim's uncle and brother.
I really didn't think about what I was going to say. I just wanted you to know that even though in your mind she may have not meant much to you, she meant so much to us. It's not even words can explain like what you took from our family. At the end of the day, we're all wondering why.
I just want to know why. Why? Who gave you the power? Who put it in your hand that you could just take another person's life? You hurt my family, and you just took my sister. Like it don't mean nothing to nobody. Like that's yours. Like you ain't had no choice. Like you in control of life and death. You ain't got no control of karma. Consequences. There are consequences.
Mosley, who did not have a lawyer present, asked to address the victim's family. The judge granted permission, but had a warning for him.
At this point, I just want you to answer me yes or no. Would you like to make a statement at this hearing? Before you do, Mr. Mosley, let me just caution you again that it is not in your best interest to make a statement. You do not have representation here today. You do have a right to remain silent. Now, are you under the influence of drugs or alcohol or anything? All right, sir.
Now it was time for Mosley to state his case. He profusely apologized and claimed Drenika's death was an accident.
I don't cry like this. I'm a grown man. And I do not cry like this for anybody. My mama has cancer. I'm locked up for 2 years right now. I can't do anything for my mama. And if Nika was here, she would tell everyone you that I did nothing wrong. I did not harm Nika. I made mistakes. Me and Nika, we both made mistakes. Plenty of mistakes. We were on drugs. I did not harm Nika. I want that very clear. I did not harm Nika. My lawyer told me, do not come in here and make a statement when the time comes because it can't be used against me. I don't give a fuck if it's held against me. I don't care about the prison time. I want everybody to know the truth. I did not harm Nika. We weren't arguing. We had no reason to be mad at each other. We had no reason to want to harm each other. She was playing with the gun. I don't know why she put it to her head. She made a mistake. She accidentally shot herself in the head. I promise you that.
However, Drenika's family was having none of it.
I want you to quit saying that. I'm telling you.
She looked like she was.
She looked like she was.
Eventually, a court officer had to calm everyone down. Ultimately, Mosley's bond was denied, and he was sent back to prison. His murder charge was later dismissed for a lack of evidence. The case still remains open. While Mosley's plea of innocence was unusual, it's nothing compared to the utter mayhem caused by Alto Miles during his murder trial. In 2020, Miles allegedly killed 4 people in 2 separate shooting scenes. The prosecutor said his first 2 victims were his 35-year-old ex-girlfriend, Tasha Mason, and 56-year-old Bridget Carter.
That woman and the other female victim were together at their residence, provoking him with jealousy by talking about photographs of other men on Facebook, and that he had finally gotten fed up, they had gone too far, and he shot and killed the 2 of them.
That same day, Miles shot 2 more people outside an apartment complex as an act of revenge. One of them had allegedly beaten him up a few days earlier.
He was mad at that individual. He went in there and exacted revenge against that individual by shooting and killing him.
Police believed Miles killed the other victim in an attempt to cover his tracks.
Merely collateral damage, that he was present and the defendant could not leave a witness.
Miles was initially facing the death penalty, but in 2023, a judge ruled that out, citing his mental health issues. Due to his unpredictable behavior, Miles appeared in a wheelchair with a spit mask on his face during his plea hearing.
All right, we're going to go on record. Case B201832, case caption State of Ohio versus Alto Miles.
While his attorney was reading out the new plea, Miles suddenly snapped.
Court provision would revoke or plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty to counts 1, 2, 3, and 4, along with gun specifications for each one of those counts for your gun specifications.
Shot my head, shot him on my head. Stab in the face, stab in the next shot.
Ms. Laughton, is this a plea offer from the State of Ohio?
Yes, Your Honor.
The judge then directly addressed Miles, but his rants continued.
All right, Mr. Miles, is that your understanding? Is that the 4 counts that you're going to plead to?
Please, I want to keep us.
Mr. Miles, we set this hearing because, Mr. Miles, I have documentation in front of me, an entry to indicate your desire to plead guilty to 4 counts of aggravated murder. Is that true?
You're good for you. Keep laughing me.
Then things got really crazy.
Mr. Miles, I'm going to ask this question again.
The judge gave Miles one last chance, but in return, all he got was a disturbing reaction.
Your last chance, Mr. Miles. Do you wish to plead guilty to these 4 counts of aggravated murder?
Miles' stunning outburst continued.
Come on, man, try to stop the weather. You don't like this stuff.
Mr. Miles, I asked you intended to plead guilty to 4 counts of aggravated murder.
Even when his attorney tried to speak some sense into him, Miles refused to stop.
You know, 75 million motherfuckers are paying my taxes.
Eventually, the judge dismissed the plea and sent him back to jail as his profanities continued to echo in the courtroom.
25 million back to jail. All right. Let the record reflect Mr. Miles cannot knowingly and voluntarily plead guilty to the charges he's been indicted with. This matter will be reset. Thank you.
Another judge later ordered a second mental evaluation of Miles. His case is still ongoing. While some may attribute Miles' reaction to mental illness, it pales in comparison to the sickening behavior of Bryce Rhodes, who was charged with 3 murders in Louisville, Kentucky.
Now, listen, stop talking. Have been... Are you done?
As per reports, Rhodes and his 2 accomplices, Anjuan Carter and Ja'Cory Taylor, tortured and stabbed brothers Larry Ordway and Maurice Gordon. The bodies of the 2 19-year-olds were found in an abandoned lot by a woman who called 911.
It looks like they're deceased and they've been burned.
Those are kids. Those are kids. Huh? No, they're kids. And it hasn't been that long. Because there's some shoe prints right here, too. There's some good shoe prints, too.
Rhodes was arrested and interrogated. He initially denied any wrongdoing.
Where they run away to? Like,
Well, if we knew that, man, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I wish I could help know where they was, I don't,
But one of his accomplices, Anjuan Carter, confessed to the police.
He made Maurice on his knees and beg for forgiveness. He tied him up. Tied him up or something. He tied his brother up. He made his brother sit in the bathroom. And he put a toboggan over his head, and he put a rag in his mouth. And then he stabbed him. We moved Maurice to the side, and we broke his brother, and we put the toboggan over his head. He put the toboggan over his head and put the sock in his mouth. And started stabbing him too.
He then described how Rhodes disposed of the bodies in crates.
What happens next? He puts them in crates. Put them in crates. Like things that you put clothes in.
Carter said he and Taylor were forced to be involved in the killings.
He made us stab him.
He made you all stab him? So you and Corey stabbed him too? Alright, how many times do you think you stabbed him?
I stabbed him one time. He left me and Corey at the house to clean it up.
He also said that the deceased brothers had witnessed Rhodes, also known as Rambo, killing a man named Christopher Jones earlier that month.
And they seen somebody just walking on the street, and they said Rambo's at the street and shot him. And Maurice, he was a getaway driver, so he was driving.
In court, Rhodes claimed the prosecutors were framing him.
The prosecution is known for falsifying and altering documents about evidence. On May 24, 2016, an informant suspect, Anjuan Carter, was detained and questioned. So he told detectives that allegedly a double homicide took place in my home. They searched for hours. They applied Blue Star chemical solution all throughout the house. They looked and looked, and they found no such evidence of any type of crime. In fact, officers stated how clean the apartment was. They also stated that the carpet had clean solution on it, and yet nothing was still found when they applied Blue Star chemical reaction.
He even suggested that police planted evidence in his home.
So they clear the scene and they leave for 1 hour and 20 minutes. They leave for 1 hour and 20 minutes. They come back and they research the home at 23:56 until 02:14 hours. Now all of a sudden they claim to find blood on the carpet. So the same carpet they just searched the first time that was clean, and now it allegedly has blood on it. See, to sum everything up, detectives were told numerous lies and fabrications by the informant, and they were led on a wild goose chase by someone who made up a story who just thought just so they can get out of jail.
Now, if that wasn't enough, an alleged spitting incident between the two.
Nice cheap shot.
You a coward.
Nice cheap
You a coward.
Due to that and a history of misdemeanors in prison, Rhodes was seen strapped to a chair wearing a spit mask in his next court appearance.
Mr. Rhodes, you can just bring him up right here.
Y'all had me come out like this for?
I think you know why. You know exactly why. Now, listen, stop talking. Have been. Are you done?
No, I'm done.
You've been charged in the 4th degree. I'm going to keep talking because I don't want to have to see you back here for this.
But that did not stop his misconduct. After a profanity-laced rant, Rhodes tried to intimidate the judge by threatening to find out where she lived.
You think where you live at? What you think at? None of that. I don't do.
So you're saying you're going to find out where I'm out?
None of that. You gotta say I'll be out.
His threats got him with additional charges of terroristic threatening and intimidating a participant in the legal process. But that's not all. In his next court appearance, Rhodes accused the judge of having a sexual relationship with the prosecutor.
I don't know if y'all got some type of sexual relationship going on or what y'all got going on, but I'm definitely gonna speak my mind.
Detective to tell him I have no sexual relationship.
Now I'm talking about you and a prosecutor over there, sir.
He even called the judge a racist, much to the shock of his own attorney.
Are you some type of Are y'all got some type of sexual relationship going on? Which one is it? Are you a secret Ku Klux Klan member?
No, sir.
Is that what you really are?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm not.
Rhodes's courtroom antics continued. In another hearing, he smiled and made gestures at the mother of the victims, Marie Wren.
But then another part of it is, if we have a concern, stop it. Look at me now!
The grieving mother lost it and had to be dragged away from court by security.
It was a violent, split-second decision.
I flipped out. I couldn't take it no more.
Marie Wren lunged toward the man accused of stabbing her sons to death and burning their bodies.
The victim's grandmother reacted to Rhodes's disrespectful behavior.
It's going on 4 years for him to stay. I'm their grandmother, and this is going on for 4 years.
Do you think he should be executed?
Yes. My first thought was to really just to go after him from the way he's been doing things.
Eventually, a jury found Rhodes guilty and recommended life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case is still ongoing.
We, the jury, do find beyond a reasonable doubt that an aggravating circumstance exists in this case and fix the defendant's punishment for the murder of Christopher Jones at life without the possibility of parole.
While Bryce Rhodes's clash with the judges will forever be legendary, how does it compare to what happened in the case of Milton Watts, who was in court for failing to appear on a domestic violence charge?
You can either make life easy or you can make life hard. That's not more. That's 180.
Things were off to a rough start when Judge Chris Green asked Milton about his failure to appear in court.
You were supposed to be here last month. You did not appear. Why weren't you here?
I had work. My mom didn't show up. Somebody died in the family. There was no reason for me to be here.
Well, it's not an engraved invitation, son. It's a court order.
Judge Green initially showed some leniency. He asked Milton to hire a new lawyer since the previous one had withdrawn from the case. But the 21-year-old continued with his smug attitude.
Your attorney withdrew, so you'll have to hire an attorney?
I don't need an attorney.
You're a lawyer?
Nope.
Do you want to talk to me about me at bond with me? What do you want to tell me?
About what?
Bond?
I don't really give a to be honest with you.
Finally, Judge Green had enough. He charged Milton for showing contempt in the courtroom.
That's going to cost you 30 days in the county jail for contempt. Cuff him, if you got the cuffs. Hold on, it's $5,000 cash surety bond, temporary, subject to the temporary protection order.
As the judge read out the charges, Milton started throwing a tantrum.
He just swore at the judge.
Judge Green tried to give him some counsel.
Can I give you a piece of advice?
What?
You can either make life easy or you can make life hard.
But Milton had other ideas. He continued his rant as Judge Green kept on adding to the charges.
I already ruined my life.
That's 60. You want to go for 90? That's 94. That's 180. That's 306.
I'm working at McDonald's, and now I gotta come here and my life up. You!
Milton's family members tried to intervene, but there was no stopping him.
No, and stop! How many days you want to give me now? Are you still counting?
Yeah, I'm at about a year right now in contempt, so.
He's got mental problems. He's not on medication.
I don't care.
I don't give a either. Stop! Everybody. You. Good. The power.
Good.
The power.
Finally, backup arrived. Court deputies took Milton away as his family looked on with disappointment. While Judge Green initially went up to 365 days in the heat of the moment, once everything calmed down, Milton was sentenced to 90 days in prison. While Milton Watts will be spending less time in prison than he bargained for, what happens when an all-out brawl breaks out between the families of the victim and the defendant? Like in the case of Frank DeLeon Jr., who was in court facing murder charges. DeLeon was 19 when he allegedly killed his ex-girlfriend, Diamond Alvarez. Police claim the two got into an altercation, after which the 16-year-old was shot 22 times in the chest. Her body was left in a park nearby. DeLeon was arrested and charged with first-degree intentional homicide. During the hearing, tensions ran high between the families of the victim and the defendant. First, it was Alvarez's mother who tried to confront DeLeon, but was stopped by a deputy. Then suddenly, a man in a blue and white t-shirt flashed across the courtroom. It was Alvarez's uncle who, seizing on the distraction, jumped in and punched DeLeon in the face. As the pandemonium spread across the courtroom, the judge was seen escaping in the background. chaos continued. Now it was DeLeon's mom who ran to her son's defense. Finally, officers were able to gain control of the courtroom. Eventually, DeLeon pled guilty and accepted a plea deal for a 45-year sentence. He will have to serve at least half his sentence before being eligible for parole. Prosecutor Kim Ogg addressed the media after the sentencing.
The sentence reflects the brutality of this young man's crime, and it should be a deterrent to anyone else who lacks the impulse control.
She said the case was solved within 2 years, which was a record as far as homicide cases went.
That this case is a good example of the way things should work. It was resolved in under 2 years. That's almost a record here in Harris County in homicide cases.
The victim's mother later apologized for her actions in the courtroom.
It was wrong of me. That was wrong of us because we're not monsters. But it's so much hate because I want my daughter back. And what he did was horrible. Seeing my daughter there and looking at him that he did that and he's laughing in my face. It was very wrong and I'm so sorry for that.
The brawl also led to the escape of another defendant in a separate case who took advantage of the chaos and ran away from the court.
Some kind of way he got out of the shackles and he walked out of the courtroom, and once he got out of the building, he took off his ankle monitor.
While DeLeon's family faced no serious charges, our next suspect's family was not so lucky. This is Amanda Cosal, who caused a crash that resulted in the death of a person in Detroit, Michigan. While driving under the influence, Amanda had a head-on collision that killed 31-year-old Jerome Zerker and severely injured his fiancée, Brittany Johnson. The couple had 5 children together. Amanda was charged and convicted of operating under the influence, causing death. At her sentencing, Jerome's sister, Doreen, read a powerful victim impact statement written by his children.
Amanda, look what you did to my life. You ruined everything I had, like my dad's life.
While Amanda seemed to be moved by Doreen's words, someone in the court found it amusing, raging Judge Kiana Lillard.
Yeah, it's time for him to go. And I don't know who he is, but whoever can sit here at a tragic moment like this and laugh and smile when somebody has lost a family member, I mean, the entire time that Mr. Zerker's sister was speaking, that clown, and that's what I'm going to call him, a clown, was sitting there smiling and laughing. Yeah, you can go too.
Judge Lillard threw the man out of the courtroom, but the woman was not so lucky.
Yeah, you can go too. Because if you don't know how to act, you can go to jail. So leave. Anybody that can sit there and laugh and smirk. Anybody else want to go?
It was Amanda's mom, Donna Cosal, who was sent to 90 days in prison for direct criminal contempt.
Ma'am, you are being taken into custody for criminal contempt. And you, ma'am, are going to the Wayne County Jail for 93 days for direct criminal contempt. Anybody else want to go? Try it.
Judge Lillard then had some stern words for the Cosal family.
This is a court of law, and these are very serious matters. And I understand you all are upset because your loved one is going to prison, but guess what? She's going to prison for the choices that she made. These people are here grieving, saddened, because a senseless act took away their loved one, and you all are sitting around here like it's a joke?
After orders were restored, Amanda was sentenced to 3 to 15 years in prison.
So it'll be the sentence of this court that you will serve 3 to 15 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections.
The following morning, her mother, Donna, appeared before Judge Lillard. She seemed a changed woman after just one night in jail. Donna apologized to the judge and the victim's family for her actions in the courtroom.
Ms. Coates, is there something you'd like to say?
Yes, I deeply apologize for what I did. I was under a lot of stress. I'm going through some doctor's appointments today for my heart. It's just everything overwhelmed, and I deeply apologize for what I did in your court. I just needed to get out, and it's been very hard for me this year, and I know for the other family, and I'm so sorry about what I did, and I know it was wrong, and I apologize.
Eventually, the judge, after some words of wisdom, set her free.
What you have to understand is, as hard as this is for you to see your baby going to prison, imagine what that family feels like when their child's dead. Things have to be conducted in decency and order. You can't come to court acting a fool. I know people watch, and we just can't have people behaving like that. It can't be tolerated. So I will give you modify your sentence for direct criminal contempt from 93 days to 1 day with credit for time served, and you should be released today.
God bless you. Thank you. And I apologize very solemnly and for the other family. Thank you.
You're welcome.
While Donna Casal spent just a night in jail for laughing at the victim's family, what happens when you lose your cool against a judge? For that, we go to Miami-Dade Bond Court, presided over by Judge Mindy Glazer.
Good afternoon. I'm Judge Mindy Glazer. I'll be presiding today over the bond hearings.
Today, she was seeing dozens of defendants. However, one in particular stood out. That defendant was Sherry Lynn, who was charged with battery and resisting arrest. Lynn allegedly assaulted a woman named Cynthia Cuba with a pair of pliers. In court, she was represented by the public defender, and she did not appreciate his questions.
Have you ever been treated for any mental health issues?
Why don't you go first?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
I said go yourself.
Initially, Judge Glazer found the incident amusing, but eventually issued a warning.
Okay, well, I'm a little busy right now, so I'm not able to do that. Ma'am, I'm just trying to help you.
Ma'am, he's trying to help you, and please don't use profanity or try and disrupt my courtroom, because I don't want to be forced to hold you in contempt of court. Remember, Mr. Snyder's trying to help you.
Then, the judge ordered Lynn to stay away from the woman who pressed charges against her.
And I'm ordering that you stay away from Cynthia Cuba. Do not have any contact with her, and you must stay away from her home and place of business.
This is when things got crazy. Lynn threw an epic profanity-filled rant at Judge Glazer.
As to the other case...
Who is this Cynthia Cuba? Tell me!
I think the allegedly tried to hit with the pliers. The other case, F-51-426, the bond on count is $5,000. Two is $5,000, and count 3 is $1,000. Have a nice day, ma'am. We'll try and get you into the hospital.
Eventually, Lynn was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation by Judge Glazer. In contrast to Sherry Lynn's actions, which amused the judge, our next suspect caused utter shock in the courtroom. This is Joseph McEnroe, who was on trial for murdering 6 people in Washington.
See the emptiness where she should be.
Reports suggest that on Christmas Eve 2017, Joseph, along with his girlfriend Michelle Anderson, killed 6 members of Michelle's family, allegedly due to a financial dispute. The first 2 victims were Michelle's parents, Judy and Wayne, who were shot by Joseph at their home in Carnation. The killer couple then dragged the bodies outside, cleaned up the house, and waited for Michelle's brother Scott to arrive with his family. They then proceeded to shoot Scott and his wife Erica in front of their children. Then, finally, at Michelle's request, Joseph killed the 2 children, Olivia and Nathan, to eliminate any witnesses. 2 days later, their bodies were found by a woman who called 911.
911? There's been a murder. There's 3 people dead that I can see right now. Inside? I just came up. She works with me.
Inside the house?
Yes.
What do you see?
There's a baby and a man and a woman, and she's my best friend.
Both were arrested while trying to flee the state. Joseph confessed to the killings in order to avoid the death penalty. In court, he gave a gruesome description of the murders.
Then she wasn't moving anymore, and so I went over by where she was, and I told her that I was sorry, and I shot her in the head. I'm sorry, I did because I thought I had to. And yeah, I know that's not a very good excuse, but I'm not trying to excuse myself. I'm just trying to explain my actions.
Joseph said that he wanted to stop, but couldn't.
What did you do to try to stop this, Joe?
I can't even say now. I tried everything that I could.
Well, why not just walk out the door and leave?
I couldn't do that.
Why not just shoot Michelle? My goodness.
She was... For all that, I mean, I don't mean to make her sound like she's like this monstrous person.
Heavily medicated for anxiety, Joseph started to lose his mind.
Joe, how often do you think about killing the Andersons?
It's in my mind all the time.
You said a couple of days ago on the witness stand, you said, look, why don't you kill me? I don't even care. So do you care? Why don't you just accept execution?
I have to make... If I just die, then that's... an act of full destructiveness.
Finally, he couldn't take it anymore and completely broke down in court.
See the emptiness where she should be.
After that, Joseph made some bizarre statements. First, he said he was visited by the deceased family from the afterlife.
They said they don't blame me. I tried to apologize to them. I was like, look, I'm so sorry for what happened.
Then, he made this chilling comment.
At least nobody suffered. The way that it is, at least nobody suffered.
Joseph even showed some signs of remorse.
I've also taken from them from these people who had done nothing but shown me kindness and goodness. And if I thought that hurting myself or killing myself or doing anything, that anything I could do would go off and bring back these people or ameliorate the pain or something, I would.
Finally, it was time to know his fate.
Although your life has been spared, Mr. McEnroe, this court now sentences you to the harshest sentence otherwise available under the law. Life imprisonment without the possibility of release or parole on count 1.
Joseph was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. And as for Michelle, she suffered the same fate. However, this wasn't the only time a convict freaked out during their sentencing. Take the example of Chance Macko, who was facing charges of grand theft auto in Southwest Ohio. 17-year-old Macko allegedly fled a juvenile facility, stole a truck, and took the police on a high-speed chase. Driving under the influence, Macko crashed the truck into an apartment building. During his hearing, Macko was seen in an orange jumpsuit with his hands cuffed in front of him. Approaching the bench, County Bailiff Jim Buckner put his hand on Macko's back, which Macko didn't appreciate and reportedly said, "You don't put your hands on me." This is when things got out of hand. Buckner grabbed Macko from behind and put him in a headlock. He then pulled the defendant further back on the chair, not letting go of his neck. Eventually hit the floor. Buckner then dragged the teen across the floor. This isn't where the story ends. A deputy who was present in the courtroom reported the incident, and Buckner was investigated. Following this, Buckner resigned from his post in exchange for no criminal charges. As for Macko, he pled guilty and was sentenced to a total of 72 months in prison. While Chance Macko's case was filled with drama, it's nothing compared to our next case. This is Michael Gaines, who was in court for assaulting a police officer in Wichita, Kansas.
Look at me. It's like eating. You ain't gotta scream at me. You gonna raise your voice at me? Oh my God. You raise your voice to me, I raise my voice to you. You just in a row.
Police said Gaines, who was HIV positive at the time, allegedly spat on an officer during a prison fight. Gaines was charged with battery of a law enforcement officer and produced in court, where things went off to a rocky start between him and the judge.
If you respect authority, you're not respecting my authority. You're not respecting me, okay? No, respect goes both ways. You're just a woman with a robe on. You're a woman, human being, just like I am, okay? All that criminal spitting out his mouth, he's a robe too. Do you really think it's appropriate to cuss here in court? Do you think it's appropriate to sentence me under this racial program you got going here? You call it justice? Justice. Yeah, okay, justice.
Gaines claimed that he was being framed.
That's bullshit, and you're gonna believe those lies. That's what I'm talking about. I didn't hawk up no saliva. You're gonna believe a lie because they wearing uniform.
The judge tried to take control, but Gaines was just getting started.
Rogue deputy. Look at me. It's like eating. You ain't gotta scream at me. You gonna raise your voice at me? Oh my God. You raise your voice to me, I raise my voice to you. You just in a row.
However, he kept the worst for prosecutor Kevin O'Connor, who bore the brunt of his outburst.
I appreciate Mr. Gaines making my point there.
You punk.
Very well received.
Maggot mother.
And I don't think I have to take insults from.
I know.
He's a tough guy now. But I think
you'll be a.
Finally, the judge had enough and asked security to remove Gaines. However, he still had some choice words left for the courtroom.
I'm talking. Take out of the courtroom. He's a maggot.
Yeah, you're a tough guy.
He's a maggot. You should have died when you was a baby.
Yeah.
Maggot.
Anytime, Mr. Gaines.
Shut up, huh? He's a maggot. You should have died when you was a baby. Still born.
Eventually, Gaines was sentenced to 13 years in prison for his trouble.